Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the case of the month. I would like to thank radiologist, radiotherapist, and all the staff of KAMES Cancer Hospital for contributing this case. Coming to the history, a 46-year male came with complaints of recurrent abdominal pain, altered bowel habits, palpable mass in right lower abdomen, and weight loss since 8 months. This is the topogram or radiograph. You can see a soft tissue lesion noted in the right lower abdomen, which is causing mild displacement of the adjacent bowel loops. The CT axial sections, non-contrast, you can see round to oval soft tissue lesion noted abutting the ileal loops. These are the jejunal loops, and this soft tissue lesion is making right angle or with that of the ileal loop. On IV contrast, there is mild enhancement noted within the mass lesion, and there is no significant adjacent fat stranding. This mass lesion is also abutting the anterabdominal wall, and this is the ileal loop, and this is the mass lesion. So the mass lesion is making right angles with that of the ileal loop. There is no significant fat stranding or lymph nodal enlargement adjacent to the lesion. These are the coronal and sagittal reconstructions. You can see the mass lesion closely abutting the ileal loop and even indenting the dome of the bladder superiorly. However, there is no significant infiltration into the bladder. These are the sagittal sections. You can see this is indentation over the bladder, but there is no significant adjacent significant fat stranding or lymph nodal involvement noted within the lesion. So the differential diagnosis can be considered in this case are gastrointestinal stromal tumor, leiomyoma, schwannoma, solitary fibrous tumor, inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor, carcinoid, lymphoma, leiomyosarcoma, or metastasis. So as we have already seen the findings, it's a well-defined round to oval exophytic soft tissue lesion abutting the ileal loop, making acute or right angles with the ileum, partly indenting the dome of the bladder. There is no significant adjacent fat stranding or infiltration. There is no lymph nodal enlargement or distant metastasis. There is no significant luminal narrowing or stricture or even obstructive features like retrograde dilatation of the bowel loops, no fistula formation or aneurysmal dilatation. So above findings favor most likely gastrointestinal stromal tumor. Ultrasound guided biopsy was done from the mass lesion, and it has the features are suggestive of gastrointestinal stromal tumor. And the immunohistochemistry was also sent from the tumor tissue, which was positive for DOG1 and even CD17 or c-KIT mutation positive, and negative for S100 succinate dehydrogenase mutation and even desmin. So what are these mutations we will see? If it is a KIT mutation positive, that is CD117 positive, then it is definitely suggestive of GIST. If it is KIT negative, then see whether it is CD34 positive or DOG1 positive or KIT or platelet derived growth factor alpha positive. So if any one of these positives, then definitely it is suggestive of GIST. If all the three are negative, that is CD34 negative, DOG1 negative, and gene mutations are negative, then check for desmin 1. If desmin is positive, it is leiomyoma. If it is S100 positive, it may suggest schwannoma, and if both are negative, consider other tumors. So we'll see a few points about histological analysis of this tumor. So GISTs are immunoreactivity positive to c-KIT, that is CD117 positive or DOG1 positive. This is nothing but DOG1 is nothing but discovered on GIST. This is the recent immunohistochemistry marker which is most sensitive for diagnosing GIST. And immunoreactivity to desmin helps establish a diagnosis of leiomyoma. Positivity for S100 protein along with other distinctive histological features is diagnosis of schwannomas. The histological appearance of bland ovoid cells and hypervascularity is suggestive of glomus tumor along with smooth muscle actin positivity. A spindle cell tumor with intratumoral plasma cells and immunoreactivity to anaplastic lymphoma kinase is compatible with the diagnosis of inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor. And chromogranin A or synaptophysin are the immunomarkers for carcinoid tumors. So these are the histological immunohistochemical markers you should keep in mind before coming to the diagnosis of GIST. So what are the various imaging modalities? First initial accessible modality is ultrasound, then endoscopic ultrasound, which depicts the wall layers of origin and helps in grading and staging of the tumor. bare meal and follow through. CCT with oral contrast better helps in delineating extent, characterization, grading, and staging, and metastasis in follow up. MRI better helps in tissue characterization, extent, and better depicts cystic changes, necrosis, or hemorrhage. Other modalities are CT or MRI enterocolysis. Last, PET CT scan better helps in staging, grading, and response to treatment and follow up of the case. So already we have seen the imaging features. On ultrasound, it is predominantly hypoechoic. On fluoroscopy, it is seen as a filling defects, which make a right angle or acute angles, and sometimes obtuse angles may be also seen. CT, it is seen as a soft tissue mass lesion. Sometimes there may be fluid levels. And if there is a deep crescent-shaped ulceration demonstrating an internal air fluid level, which is referred to as Torricelli-Bernoulli sign. Enhancement is typically peripheral. Calcification is uncommon. Lymph nodal enlargement is uncommon. And metastasis will be seen better depicted by CT. MRI better depicts the presence of cystic changes, necrosis, or hemorrhage. And nuclear medicine PET CT scan better helps in initial staging, treatment response, and even follow-up of the GIST cases. So this is the end. This is the ultrasound image. You can see this is the hypoechoic mass arising from the antrum of the stomach. So minimal peripheral vascularity noted on color Doppler. This is endoscopic ultrasound image. This is the hypoechoic mass originating from the muscularis propria and causing displacement of the mucosa and submucosal layers. So hypoechoic lesion arising from the muscularis propria with acute angles with that of the wall, causing elevation of the mucosa, submucosa, and epithelial layer is highly characteristics of GIST. So on this is in the endoscopy, you can see the mass is projecting into the lumen. And this is other case where you can see this is the endoscopy, the mass is projecting into the lumen with elevation of the mucosa and submucosa. The lesion is predominantly hypoechoic with peripheral vascularity, and the FNAC was done. There is a speck of hemorrhage along the needle. Later, there is diffuse hemorrhage filling in the tumor on delayed images. So this tumor is a highly vascular tumor. So whenever we do an FNAC, either ultrasound guided FNAC, we should see to prevent that tumor spillage into the peritoneum, because it will increase the chance of recurrence and spread to other organs. So this is the image where you can see we are going from outside to inside. This is the outside. These are the subserosa, serosa, and adventitia. There is muscularis propria. This is the submucosa and mucosa. So GIST mostly occurs in the muscularis propria. So, and it will extend either into the submucosa or mucosa or extend beyond the serosa outside. So, and basing upon the echogenicity, you can see GIST falls predominantly in hypoechoic range, whereas lipoma is hyperechoic and anechoic are nothing but varices, cyst, and lymphangioma. So this is other case where you can see this is double contrast barium meal follow through. You can see there is a nodular lesion projecting into the lumen arising from the lesser curvature of the stomach, which is making acute or right angles with that of the wall of the stomach. And here you can see the mass lesion is projecting into the lumen of the stomach. And this is the CT. You can see this is the muscularis propria, and the lesion is broad based towards the wall, projecting into the lumen of the stomach and making acute or right angles with that of the wall, and even causing elevation of the mucosa. This hyperenhancing is nothing but the epithelial mucosal layer. So this is causing elevation of the epithelial mucosal layer. On MRI, you can see it is iso to hypointense with that of the wall. There is minimal wall thickening. It's not showing any suppression on fat suppressed T2 weighted sequences, and even showing mild enhancement. It is also having an endophytic component and even an exophytic component. So coming to the discussion, how did the concept of GIST evolve? Mazur and Clark introduced the term stromal tumor in 1983 after they failed to find the ultrastructure evidence of smooth muscle or nerve sheath differentiation. The lack of unequivocal smooth muscle derivation plus presence of positivity for markers is indicative of smooth muscle origin, which give rise to concept of GIST. GIST is nothing but the most common mesenchymal tumor of the GI tract and is arises from interstitial cells of Kajal. The male predilection is there, 54% males are involved and 46% in women's, and mean age is greater than 60 years of age. So what are the GIST is seen originating from interstitial cells of Kajal, and GIST specifically shows KIT or CD117 positive and CD34 positivity. These interstitial cells of Cajals are nothing but pacemakers regulating the interstitial peristalsis and motility. These interstitial cells of Cajal are located in Orban's plexus of stomach and even intercalated between intramural neurons and smooth muscle cells in small intestine and colon. So loss of interstitial cells of Cajal function has also been implicated in diabetic gastroenteropathy, gastroenteric arrhythmias and Hirschsprung's disease. GIST can occur anywhere in the stomach, but the most common site is stomach, followed by small bowel. In small bowel, duodenum, jejunum, followed by ileum. Other site will be colorectal, then esophagus. There is other component known as extra gastrointestinal GIST, which is seen in omentum and mesentery, and rarely in pleura, pancreas, retroperitoneum, abdominal wall, liver or rectovaginal septum, gallbladder and urinary bladder. So what are the association or syndromes associated with GIST? It may be a familial GIST or Carney's triad, Carney's Strateky syndrome, neurofibromatosis type 1, or familial gastrointestinal stromal tumor syndrome, or sometimes GIST associated with desmoid tumors or pediatric GIST. So you can see Carney's triad, there is extraadrenal spinal paragangliomas, GIST and pulmonary chondromas. In Carney-Strateky syndrome, it is autosomal condition. There are familial paragangliomas, GIST, pheochromocytomas, esophageal leiomyoma, and adrenal cortical adenomas. In familial GIST syndromes, in addition to the GIST, there will be skin lesions, malignant melanoma, and angioleiomyoma. So these are the various syndromes associated. Only the Carney's triad is sporadic and not inherited. Remaining familial GIST, Carney-Strateky syndrome and NF1 are inherited. So this is the flow chart where we can see 90% of GIST either show positivity for KIT or platelet-derived growth factor receptor positivity. In that it may be divided into sporadic or familial. If they are not showing positivity for KIT gene or platelet-derived growth factor receptor alpha gene, then they are called wild type of GIST. This wild type of GIST again divided into SDH deficient GIST or non-SDH deficient GIST. SDH deficient GIST will have even succinate dehydrogenase mutations, which are seen in Carney-Strateky syndrome, and if they are not associated with no SDH mutations, then it falls into Carney's triad. And even non-SDH deficient GIST will either have NF1 mutations or BRAF mutations. So coming to Carney-Strateky syndrome and Carney's triad, Carney's triad is GIST, paraganglioma and pulmonary chondromas, and it is sporadic and not inherited. Carney-Strateky syndrome is GIST, paragangliomas, and it is inherited, caused by mutations in succinate dehydrogenase genes. And along with this, remember Carney's complex, which is different from Carney's triad and Carney-Strateky syndrome, which consists of multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome, consists of cardiac myxomas, blue nevus, extracardiac myxomas, pituitary adenoma, schwannoma, and testicular tumors. So in this image, you can see the histological variant of GIST. Epithelial type is seen in Carney's triad and Carney-Strateky syndrome, whereas spindle cell type is seen in neurofibromatosis. You can remember a mnemonic as SPECS LM, that is Carney's triad. You can see involvement of stomach. There is paragangliomas, P for paragangliomas, E for epithelial type variant, C for chondromas, and S for sporadic involvement, that is not inherited, and LM, that is lymph nodal metastasis. So these are all seen in Carney's triad. And in NF type 1, you can see, remember as CIS, that is small intestine, small in size, and is spindle type of histology variant of GIST is seen in NF type 1. Coming to the different GIST related emergencies, GIST can present with GIT bleeding, so it can present as hematemesis or melena or severe bleeding per rectum. So the patient may present with melena or chronic anemia. Sometimes it will lead to intestinal obstruction, so they may present with intestinal obstruction symptoms, and sometimes intraperitoneal hemorrhage, so the patient may present with hypovolemia or shock. Even there is rupture or peritonitis, so patient may present also with peritonitis features or fever or peritonitis features. Coming to immunohistochemistry, which is very important in diagnosing GIST, 95% are positive for KIT gene, that is CD117 gene, and 5% are, if they are negative for KIT gene or CD117 gene, they are positive for platelet-derived growth factor positivity, which is predominantly platelet-derived growth factor alpha. Recent studies are already, we have seen in previous slides, that is wild type of GIST, which may not have KIT or platelet-derived growth factor positivity. They may have BRAF or succinate dehydrogenase gene mutations. And 60 to 70% positivity for CD34. And recent is DOG1, that is discovered on GIST1. This is anactomine. This is the most sensitive and specific marker for GIST and has high specificity even in KIT CD117 and CD34 negative cases of GIST, and possibly even higher than that of CD117 for the accurate diagnosis of GIST. So this is the flow chart. When we diagnose a GIST, we will see for immunohistochemistry markers. If it is CD117 positive and DOG1 negative, we exclude other CD117 tumors. And if it is CD117 negative and DOG1 positivity, or CD117 positivity and DOG1 positivity, it is highly favorable for GIST. And then in turn see for the detection of KIT gene or platelet derived growth factor alpha mutations. If it is negative for both CD117 gene and DOG1 gene, then it may be a non-GIST case. Coming to the prognostic factors, what we have to remember in that GIST and follow-up of GIST are mitotic rates, that is 5 or more per high power 50 high power fields, tumor size greater than 2 centimeters, and micro GIST when the tumor size is less than 1 centimeter. Patients with small intestinal GIST have a great risk of malignancy, presence and type of KIT or platelet derived growth factor mutations, and GIST with exon level mutation respond to imatinib therapy, that is tyrosine kinase receptor inhibitor therapy, whereas GIST with exon 9 or HDH dehydrogenase subunit mutations does not respond to imatinib mesylate therapy. Other proliferation markers like Ki67 and loss of P16 regulator, loss of CD44 expression or overexpression of heat shock proteins are considered as unfavorable factors. So coming to the pathological grading, if there are greater than 5 mitosis for 50 hyperfield, it has a high risk for disease progression. And if the size is greater than 10 centimeters, it has a moderate to high risk. And coming to the modified Fletcher classification, which includes tumor size, mitotic index, and the site of the tumor. So less than 2 centimeters is very low risk. 2 centimeters is nothing but low risk. Intermediate risk is between 2 to 5 centimeters. And any tumor greater than 10 centimeters has a high risk for progression of the disease and even turning into malignancy. So mitotic index less than 5 mitotic index for 50 hyperfield has a very low risk, whereas greater than 5 or greater than 10 are indicative of high risk for progression and even turning of the disease into malignancy. So coming to the treatment, whether it is a localized disease or a metastatic disease, and if it is a localized disease, whether less than 2 centimeters or greater than 2 centimeters. So this is the flow chart, gastrointestinal tumor. If it is a resectable one, definitely go for surgery. And if it is high or indeterminate risk, then give adjuvant imatinib treatment and followed by surgery. If it is unresectable or borderline resectable, then go for imatinib treatment. If there is positive response, then go for surgery. And in all the cases of metastatic disease, directly go for treatment with imatinib mesylate. And if there is disease progression or imatinib resistant GIST, then try sunitinib, which is second generation tyrosine kinase inhibitors. And if it is still resistant to sunitinib, then try third line tyrosine kinase inhibitors, which are regorafenib, which is recent drug. This will work in cases of resistance to imatinib and sunitinib. Coming to localized tumor less than 2 centimeters, you can do either endoscopic guided fine needle aspiration or abdominal pelvic CT with contrast. In less than 2 centimeters, in endoscopic ultrasound features, you have to see whether there is high risk features for malignancy. If there are high risk features, then go for complete surgical resection and surveillance with abdominal pelvic CT with contrast every 3 to 6 months for 3 to 5 years, then annually. So what are the high risk features are in endoscopic ultrasound are tumor size greater than 30 mm, irregular margins, echogenic foci, cystic spaces, heterogeneous ecotexture, exophytic development, non-round or non-oval shaped, adjacent lymphadenopathy, and ulcerated mucosa. These features will suggest high risk for disease progression and malignancy. And if there is no regression, no high risk features, then consider surveillance. And recent is endoscopic ultrasound guided FNTA, which has a diagnostic yield of 93.4%, which is ultrasound guided fine needle tissue acquisition. And localized tumor greater than 2 centimeters, definitely if the risk morbidity is, there is no risk morbidity, then go for surgery. If there is risk morbidity, then consider pre-treatment with imatinib. And when the size of the tumor is decreased, then followed by surgery. And the aim of the surgery is nothing but excision where margins are clear of tumor cells, that is R0 excision. If not possible, then go for marginal excision. So what are these role of drugs or CT and MRI and PET in the treatment of GIST? So this is new tyrosine kinase inhibitor, that is imatinib. It is Glivia company, is a selective adenosine triphosphate ATP competitive tyrosine kinase inhibitor which inhibits KIT or BRC or ABL or platelet derived growth factor alpha and beta mutations. So the dose is 400 to 800 milligrams, and the other drug is sunitinib, which is nothing but second generation tyrosine kinase inhibitors, which is used in imatinib resistant GIST, and third line tyrosine kinase inhibitors in patients who are intolerant to either imatinib and sunitinib is regorafenib, and recent is avapritinib, which nothing but is very specific for GIST harboring platelet derived growth factor alpha mutations. And coming to the what is the role of CT? At contrast in CT, a response to imatinib is characterized by rapid transition from heterogeneously hyperattenuating pattern to a homogeneously hypoattenuating pattern with resolution of enhancing tumor nodules. So hyperattenuating pattern when is converted to hypoattenuating pattern, which shows good response to the imatinib treatment, and there is resolution of enhancing tumor nodules and decrease in the tumor vessels, is a very good prognostic sign for response to imatinib treatment. And other bad signs or bad signs of prognosis or bad signs of response are increase in tumor size, development of new lesions, development of metastasis, development of enhancing tumor nodules in the previous tissues, that is hypoattenuating tumor, and regardless of change in the tumor size is consistent with GIST recurrence or bad prognosis or poor response to imatinib treatment. Coming to MRI, small GIST had MRI features different from well-known imaging features of large GIST. The presence of intratumoral cystic change or necrosis or hemorrhage and a low mean ADC value may be helpful for predicting high malignant potential for GIST. So these are the drugs which you have to remember in case of tyrosine kinase inhibitor treatment for GIST. So what are the side effects of imatinib? So fluid retention is the most common side effect. Diarrhea, nausea, fatigue, and cramps, abdominal pain. So fluid overload may lead to ascites, pleural effusion, or pericardial effusion. So new ascites in the CT after the treatment of imatinib should not be mistakenly interpreted as indicating new peritoneal disease. Sometimes mild intratumoral hemorrhage can also occur in 5% of patients. So careful observation is needed to detect decrease in the hemoglobin levels following first to 4 to 8 weeks of imatinib treatment. And intratumoral hemorrhage can increase the tumor size, and in addition can spuriously increase the tumor attenuation, thus complicating the response evaluation. So what is the criteria which is used for response to the imatinib treatment is Choi response criteria for GIST. The solitary use of size of tumor during evaluation of response to chemotherapy has some pitfalls. So the Choi response criteria was used for GIST proposed that tumor attenuation could be provided an additional measure for response to imatinib therapy. Complete response, there is disappearance of all target lesions. Partial response, there is greater than 10% decreased tumor size at CT or 15% decrease in tumor attenuation at computed tomography and no new lesions. Progressive disease, there is greater than 10% increase in the longitudinal diameter of the lesions and does not meet the criteria of the partial response. And there are new intratumoral nodules which have developed into the lesion and increase in the size of the existing intratumoral nodules, which are signs for progressive disease or risk of malignancy. And stable disease, there is none of the above. So this Choi responsive criteria is used for GIST. So coming to the follow-up of the case in a GIST, clinical assessment and radiological assessment. Clinical assessment first review within 6 weeks post-surgery, and subsequent follow-up can be done every 3 monthly in the first year, 4 monthly in the second year, 6 monthly in the third to 5 years. Even radiological assessment, routine CT abdomen pelvis within 3 months post-surgery, and based on risk assessment, if it is very low risk, there is no further CT scans are required. If it is low risk, CT at 1 year post-surgery. If it is intermediate risk, then CT of 9 months, then annually for 4 years. If it is high risk, then CT 6 monthly for 3 years and then annually for 2 years. This is the follow-up schedule which is used in operated GIST. These are the few references which I have taken. So what are the points to remember or summary? So in this GIST, the most common mesenchymal tumors of the GIT, they arise from interstitial cells of Kajal, which are nothing but considered as motility, which are useful in the motility of the bowel, and DOG1 or KIT CD117 positive or CD34 positivity or platelet derived growth factor alpha positivity, which is seen in GIST. S100 and desmin are negative. Common location in stomach, then small intestine, colorectal and extraintestinal GIST. Differentials are leiomyoma, schwannoma, solitary fibrous tumor, inflammatory myofibrillary tumor or carcinoids and even glomus. Micro-GIS which are less than 1 centimeters, macro-GIS which are greater than 10 centimeters, and wild type of GIS which are either KIT or PGDFR alpha negative. Other associated syndromes are Carney's triad, Carney-Strachey syndrome, NF1, and familial GIST. What are the associated emergency or obstruction, hemorrhage, rupture, and peritonitis? Metastatic or large GIST or recurrent GIST, the drug of choice is imatinib. If resistant, then sunitinib. And if resistant, third generation is regorafenib. And what is the criteria which is used is Choi response criteria, that is propose the tumor attenuation could provide an additional measure to response to imatinib therapy. Ultrasound and endoscopic ultrasound better delineates the layers of origin, extension, and even guiding ultrasound or endoscopic ultrasound by biopsy or endoscopic ultrasound guided fine needle tissue acquisition. CT and PET CT helps in diagnosing, staging, and grading of the tumor, even in tumor response and follow-up. MRI better delineates tissue characterization, detects cystic changes, necrosis, and hemorrhage better than CT. So thank you one and all. Please subscribe and share.